Hey everybody, welcome to our first recording of a series I've been wanting to make since I started making these little craft houses. And it's a series on creativity. And for my first one, I thought I'd work with Beth, the person I work with the most around the homestead. And I've been able to see so much creativity over the years and the change in your creativity. So, welcome, Beth.
Thank you.
So, where has this creativity and I'm specifically speaking around your design, your interior design. Um, we just got done shooting a little photography with our photographer Nyla, and Beth made a bunch of all the staging around the houses that we took pictures of. So let me let you talk for a little bit.
It's hard to say. I mean, if when you feel passionately about something, it's something that's innate. It's just part of you, and it's just something that naturally happens. I don't have any certifications or degrees. It's just a love of design and decor and seeing what something looks like and not being afraid to try it, to try different things, to try something um, that looks like something that no one else has done before.
Mhm.
Um, so it's always been there, but my primary job for the past way too many years has been more analytical, logical, probably a little dry, but it's been great. But I've always had this creative side that's always wanted to burst out. And now that, life changes and I get older and I see opportunities for me to express it more. So, and to share it with people. Whereas before, when we didn't have the homestead,
Mhm.
we had personal things. You have home items, you do design in your house and decor, and no one sees it. But we're fortunate to have the homestead where we can display our creativity. I mean, we're both creative. And it's nice to just let it fly and try it. Doesn't always work,
Yeah.
but you just keep trying till you get what's in your head onto the stage.
I think it's really interesting. As I've started creating these houses, my process is so different from yours,
Yes.
so different, and being more analytical and taking your times with thing where you probably say how I am.
you you jump into things head first and don't think about, which is great,
Hmm.
because I'm quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It sits in my head for quite a while before I start to have it manifest
Hmm.
outwardly, and then once I get my thoughts and my plans together, then I can fly.
Hmm.
But it always evolves. So design is something that you might have it in your head, you might have it in your heart, and you start doing it, and the space or the thing tells you what it wants to be.
I couldn't agree with
That
you more there.
is key. People
Hmm.
don't, in my experience, I don't think people listen. It's like know your audience,
Hmm.
right? It's like, what is the piece telling you it wants to be?
With the reclaimed wood that I've been using, I swear, like, I can't have an idea. I can get inspiration and something that motivates me to get in there and make something. But when I look at a piece, the lines in the wood kind of tell me which direction to go. And sometimes I have to just start. If I try to think about
Right.
it, I just start cutting and it kind of tells me where to cut. And those pieces, even though I have no idea how they're going to turn out, always turn out to be the best ones.
That's right. I think, like we said, the pieces tell you what they want to be, and you have to honor that.
Hmm.
And it doesn't always turn out, the way that you originally had it planned in your brain.
Hmm.
And if it's a more natural evolution of something, then I think you get a better result.
But you got to just start,
You just got to start. I
right?
think that's where people get hung up a lot. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I'm afraid. I mean, this sounds terrible. I have no qualifications design wise. I just love design and
Right.
decor. And I'm not afraid to jump in and do it, just like you're not. It's
Hmm.
just like jump in and try it and see what comes to light.
Well, let me ask you, let me back up a little bit because, so many people, myself definitely included, when you see an empty room or an empty building, when I see it, I just say, it's overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. And and although like the homestead has 6 different buildings on it, but each building somehow you see it and you go, I need this here, I need this here, and you actually
Right.
do this with your hands, and it magically appears
Right.
in your head. I
That's right.
imagine you're kind of creating it like
Well,
a wizard.
and it's right. It's a lot of times people say that you walk into a space and they go, okay, go design it. There goes my hand. Sorry. And you, what the process that works for me is I have to stand in it and look at it and breathe it in and really let it talk to me and say, okay, this is, but I really need to stand in a space
Hmm.
and just soak it in to see what starts to happen, what starts to churn inside of me, and then it starts to churn and churn and churn. And that's when you see, even if it's sometimes people with design, like I'll start with one piece. It could be fabric, could be a pillow, could
Hmm.
be a picture, it could be, an accessory, and that can drive the room.
That's your
And
inspiration.
that could be your inspiration.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get your feet in the room, or whatever you're painting or you're
Hmm.
doing whatever. Um, and you just work with that piece, and then it it blows up.
And sometimes at the end, that piece comes out,
That piece comes out. Absolutely.
but
You're
it gets
like
you started.
you're like, oh yeah, that was dead wrong. That was terrible.
Well, but that one piece, the colors can come from that one
Correct.
piece. That the textures can come from
Yep.
that piece. So take me through, for instance, you know, something people can relate to for those who've been at the homestead. You have the studio, which was just a corrugated tin garage at one
Right.
point. Forget the process of building that out, but then it was just an empty triangle,
Hmm.
and then the cottage, a completely different space with the windows and the fireplace again. But walking into those, when we started, they're empty spaces. How do you get started?
Well, with the studio, which was an old crappy garage, for lack of a better word, um, you got to have the right backdrop. The cottage already had the backdrop designed,
Hmm.
right? It was an existing building.
The rustic
The
wood.
rustic wood, the
Yes.
cool window lines, the pitch in the roof, the
Fireplace.
fireplace,
Hmm.
that already had a message.
Hmm.
So you started with that. With the studio, which was the old garage, you had to get the backdrop right.
Hmm.
It wanted to be a little more modern, a little more funky, a little more vintagey vibe. So it was important, what the inside and the walls looked right, because you got to get the hard lines right
Hmm.
in order to bring in the soft stuff and soften it up and make it all work together and make it one cohesive thing. But the studio called out to me and said, I want to be funky.
Hmm.
I want to be funky. Let's make this cool. And that to me drives, other people who like that. I love it all. I like all different
Hmm.
kinds of design, whether it's, antiques and old stuff and vintage and contemporary.
But kind of
Um,
like the piece told you what it wanted to be, so that at least helps
Correct.
push you in a direction.
Right.
So now you're thinking funky vibe, but you still have an empty space. So where do you start? Do you start with planning out each individual vignette, or you starting with filling in large spaces?
Sometimes it's filling in the large spaces because, like at the studio, I always like a cool, funky couch
Hmm.
or sofa. Something that's cool, something that's mid-century modern, that, has a feeling to it, has a vibe to it. Then that'll drive your accessories and
Hmm.
it's all the soft stuff too. You've got to work with. I usually work with the hard pieces first,
Hmm.
because you get the hard stuff together, the furniture that you want that feeling to be,
Hmm.
but then
So
you're
you
not.
got the buffet, the
Correct.
couch, the
Right.
table,
This is
this
my
maybe it's
process.
a big sign on the wall.
Right. And that spurs other thoughts too. Right. So once you get some of the hard stuff together, like that's a cool piece, this is a cool piece. I knew, like, let's take this wall, for example.
Hmm.
And design doesn't have to be expensive. You could do you can do design and decor with the most cost $1.
Hmm.
It's how you use it and how you stage it
Right.
and how you make it work together so it just flows and it just feels like a welcoming space.
Hmm.
This wall, when we talked about it, it was like, look at all this vinyl. Look at these album covers. That was the driver for this room.
Mm, right,
Was I knew we wanted an album wall and
right,
we wanted the pop of
right.
color.
Tired of all the albums. The artwork on the album is
Is
always so
is
beautiful,
amazing.
but they sit in milk crates. We
Right,
have a
and
couple here.
nobody appreciates it.
Hmm.
And this is beautiful.
And then when you actually build it and you put it up, we started with this wall, and the
Right,
rest of the room was empty.
right.
So this was the first thing we did after the floor was to put this wall together, and then everything came off of that.
Everything drove from that because
So,
that was the backdrop, that was the driving force, and then that flowed to the rest
so
of the
tip number
room.
one: get your big hard items in.
That's my
Hmm.
process. Other people work differently. There's a lot to. You can't just have the hard pieces. The hard pieces are great, but if you don't have stuff to soften it up
Hmm.
and make it feel warm and make it feel comfortable, then you just have a cold bleh
Right.
space.
So as you always say, soften the corners.
Soften the corners, soften the edges.
Hmm.
Right. It's really important. I mean, it doesn't have to be expensive, just has to warm it up.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of layering. You'll layer everything.
So you have your hard stuff in. Now you're breaking it down to walls and vignettes. How do you attack a vignette? What are the components of that wall, this space here? What are the components that you go through to pull that together?
So, one of the things that I don't like to do is to see what everybody else is doing, because it's so easy when you have, like, I have a passion for this, right? And I want it to be original
Hmm.
and I want it to be cool and I want it to be something that people haven't seen before. And they go, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could
Right.
do that. So I don't like to watch the shows. I don't like to watch, I'll flip through Instagram and stuff like that and
You can get
social media.
inspiration. A lot of people get inspiration from you.
Inspiration, but I
Hmm.
try not
But
to
copy it. You don't.
because I want it to be original,
Hmm.
right? So that's really what drives me is what's something that nobody else has seen, depending on what I want it to be. Like if I'm going like this is more of a loungy space.
Hmm.
Wanted this to be loungy. I wanted it to be cool. I wanted it to be comfortable. What's something that other people haven't done? That's why I don't watch a lot of those because there's no rules.
Hmm.
There's no rules. That's the big part of what you have to remember. No rules to design and decor. Now, it's not everybody's thing, so, look it up. But that's not how I do it. I do it from what comes from within.
You're hitting on a subject that means a lot to me, and that's the no rules.
No
You
rules.
know I hate rules
Right. Yeah,
more
right.
than, more than
You
most, I
more so
think.
than me. Right.
and and I think in my creations is I go down to my workshop, and it's kind of like my artist gallery. There's no one around. It's just me, my music, sometimes no music, and no one can tell me how long it has to take,
Right.
what angle I have to do, and there's no rules. And that is my favorite thing. And also for me, there's no mess ups.
Right.
Whatever happens, sometimes a piece breaks and it breaks perfect, and you nail it back together, and now it looks cool because
Right.
it's a haunted house or something, um, and everything just works out, and it becomes what I created,
Yes.
what I thought of. There's no rules.
There's no rules and there's no perfection.
Hmm.
Remember that. They're imperfectly perfect is perfect.
Right.
That's really the thing is like you said, a piece breaks, save it. I'm going to need this for something else because it's pretty dang cool,
Hmm.
right? And then you find a home for it. It always finds a home because we're big salvagers. We love to salvage. We love to find old cool stuff, and make it live again, right? And
Right.
love it again and put it in a different light for people to go, I didn't know I could do that. That's cool. And it costs you nothing.
Right. And that pillow that you bought for a room
Right.
doesn't work out, but you don't take it back or throw it
Never.
away. It always
I
ends up
really don't because
somewhere.
if I love a piece, I'm going to hang on to it.
Hmm.
Because starting the homestead, we were both buying stuff years
Garage fulls.
before. Yeah, years before we found a home for it.
Hmm.
Just believing, and it's just finding cool stuff. It doesn't, again, it doesn't have to be something perfect. It doesn't have to be something that everybody else loves or they can't see the vision for where
Mhm.
it's going to go. Because it's going to go somewhere.
Another tip is if you see something you love, get it while you're there.
Yeah,
If you can afford it and it's something you want and you don't know where it's going to go, you better get it because one, you can always resell it and make your money back. But two,
right.
that thing is gone.
That thing
Every
is
time.
gone.
Every time you go back for that thing that you thought you liked,
Right.
you missed it.
Well, and other design tips are if you find something that's in the most hideous color or the most hideous fabric, but it's got good bones, snag it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're creative enough, paint it, put new fabric on it, attach it to something else, and it's become now this fabulous thing
Mm-hmm.
that people go, oh, I didn't know I wanted that until they saw that what you created is
Mm-hmm.
something now that they wanted. I always say people don't know what they want until you show them,
Well,
right?
we just bought an old mirror. It had a nice frame on it,
Right. It
but it was painted wrong.
was
But the
terrible.
bones were cool, and you just finished painting that, and now you don't know if you want to sell it.
I don't know if I want to sell it.
Now I don't know if I want to keep it. That
Right.
happens a lot.
Right.
Um, but grab it when you see it,
Grab it when you
and don't
see
be
it.
afraid to hold on to it for a long time because, like you said,
Absolutely.
you sit on it.
Right.
I think even that mirror was here for a couple
That
months.
mirror was here for a while. Well, it's a time factor, but it's
Sure.
also I have to wait until I'm inspired. Like, what do I want this to look like? Where am
Mm-hmm.
I going to use this? What space is it going to go in? How can I get it to complement the space that
Mm-hmm.
I want it to go in? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, the piece speaks to you and it goes, no, try this, try this. And again, like when you're redoing a piece, don't be afraid to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
It's just paint. It's just a piece of fabric. It's just a piece of glue. It's a nail. It's a just start over if you don't like it.
Yeah, I think another thing that you're really great at is that you're not stuck on that piece that you thought was perfect. Even when you paid a little bit of money for it, it has good bones, it's everything you want it to be. Sometimes you put it in the space and you try to make it work,
Right.
and then
And you go,
you're pretty
it's terrible.
you're
It's like,
pretty good.
what was I thinking?
Right. You're never married to it because
No.
sometimes in your head it makes sense, and then you put it
Right.
in the space
You
and
put
it's
it in the
completely
space and you go,
different.
that was a terrible decision. That was not good. And that's okay.
Hmm.
That's okay. It'll have a home someplace else.
So,
Right.
so you use a lot of textures in. I'm just again, this is what I've learned from just being around you. But textures, colors,
Right.
height,
Right.
depth.
Right. People, it's such a simple thing. A lot of different textures, a lot of different depth dimensions. It changes the whole look of the room. Even if it's an angle, I'm a big angler. I like to angle things. It just a tweak will make it, will make it, it'll be like, that's it. And that's, you walk away and you go, that's it. But again, mix your textures. It doesn't have to be, and you don't want everything to look the same. That's one of my rules. You don't like samesies. Everything shouldn't be um, like, you're matching stuff up and I'm not a, symmetry's okay for some things.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of symmetry. I like the odd, flow sometimes. Symmetry is good sometimes,
Hmm.
but then symmetry isn't necessary all the time. Like people have two candlesticks, two plants, two this, two that. I don't like that. I like different heights, different dimensions, different positions,
Hmm.
and then layer stuff in there.
And you're really good about. You really take your time with it. And I think
Too
that's
much, probably.
probably, in my
In
opinion,
your
because
opinion,
I work very differently than you,
right?
and I get to a point where I go good enough, but you get to a point where you say good enough, but it could be better, and you see that better, and you don't want to stop until it's perfect. And let me tell you, my stuff is good, but when you're finished, I go, oh well, I mean, I can't compete.
Yes, you can. We just work differently.
Right.
That's all. And this stuff that you're producing with your houses
Hmm.
and that creative flow, like that's your speed because you do it fast and you do it. It's just like your energy's this. My energy's this is the rabbit in the hare thing right
Right.
here. That's it.
Tortoise in the hair.
Right, rabbit in the tortoise in the hare. I got that wrong. Tortoise in the hare. I'm tortoise. He's hare. He's going, going, going,
Uh-huh.
and I'm the tortoise. I'm slow and steady, slow and steady. That works for me. And sometimes you put a design together and you picked at it for way too long and you just got to go, I got to back off. I'm going to
Hmm.
let it sit and I'm going to walk away
Sleep
and
on
I'm
it
going to come back to it and let it sit for days sometimes.
sometimes. Yeah.
And then other times you walk back in and you go, yeah, that's okay. I think I like this.
Hmm.
Or this is terrible. This
Up in
is
the middle of the
terrible.
night and you come up with
You're
this
up in the
idea.
middle of the night, right? That's when stuff pops into my brain. And you're probably well, no, you're a hard sleeper probably. Um, but that's when stuff pops into your brain and you're driven. But
Hmm.
you walk back into the space and you look at what you set up and you go, just needs a little tweak, or
Hmm.
this is good. It's not bad to come back to stuff. Try it out, let it sit for a minute. You paint colors the same way. It's, sometimes with paint, you got to let it sit because lighting will throw you all off. And that's a critical part.
So you have to put in the time, is what you're saying, is that
Yeah.
it's never what you think it is. Give it time to simmer,
Hmm.
get started, heights, depth, dimensions, give it time. Yeah, I think that's another thing. Like people think I only have an afternoon, I have to get it done.
Right.
And
Right.
it doesn't have to be that way, right? It can be a continuous thing.
It's an iterative thing. It's just kind of like a building blocks, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, or you're collecting pieces for the space you're creating. You
Mm.
find a cool piece, you find a cool piece, you find a cool piece of
And that
furniture,
sits in the garage
and
for
you,
6 months.
it's exactly right. And it sits and sits and sits, but what you hope is the place it's going to
Right.
eventually be, and it takes time to culminate things and to culminate that
I
vision.
think I've seen around this house as you've built rooms, you have actually bought in smaller things, but you're waiting for those hard pieces we said
Yeah.
earlier. You're waiting for that couch.
Right.
You're waiting for that table before you bring everything back into the room
Right.
and then see where it goes.
Yeah, I like I said, I like to figure out my bigger pieces first. Like even, we haven't shown this room, but even designing the fireplace and the wallpaper
Hmm.
and the paintings that were going on it. This is all stuff I dreamt about.
Hmm.
I dreamt about what the look was going to be. And then part of design is trying to find the best price for stuff.
Right. You
Because
have to be able to afford it.
you have to be able to afford it, but
Hmm.
you don't have to spend a lot of
A
money.
lot of options
You
out
do
there.
not have to spend a lot of money. It's the eye. If it's pleasing to your eye and you have good taste, and which most people do in some way or
Hmm.
another, it's going to work.
Well, and I think the point of that, you're spending money over time to collect these little things.
Right.
So it's not one big dump where you're
No.
feeling the pain, but also like when you're gonna design a room, you buy those pieces that sit in the garage for a while.
Right.
And to your point, you just saw something that was cool and had good bones. You don't actually know where it's gonna end up.
Correct. I
And
never know
you
where a
never
lot
know.
of some stuff I buy. I'm like, I'm going to paint that. I'm going to use that later. I'm going to need it later. I'm going to love that later. It's going to be fabulous.
Hmm. Right. And that's again, the other point is just because it's something now doesn't mean you can't recreate it.
Right.
So adding paint to something is really.
Adding paint to something again, if you mess it up, it's just paint it over, do something else with it. It's okay. But again, like I said, if it has good bones and it's a cool piece,
Mhm.
grab it, because it's the one of a kind thing. Again, it goes to, I don't like to reproduce what everybody else has reproduced, which is why I don't like all those influences.
Mhm.
Right. And trust me, there's a ton of creative people out there. Tons. It's amazing to me how creative people are. um, but again, trying to find one of a kind pieces, or a piece that you can make one of a kind,
Mhm.
they're hard to find. So when you find them,
You grab them.
grab them,
Right.
even if you're not using it right away.
Right. Yeah, people have drawn to my houses a little bit. They're different. They're not cookie cutter.
Right,
They're all extremely unique and different in their own way. And they're flying off the shelf. So that's a good
right.
problem to have. But it's challenging to come up with new ideas. So
Yeah.
when you get into a room, so you finish a vignette, you have your hard pieces in, you're putting your soft pieces in now and softening the corners, but that's one wall. How do you, as you've put it, pulled it through the room now?
Well, I'm a big believer in, you want your space to be welcoming. You want it to be inviting.
Hmm.
You want it to be warm.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that I go against contemporary stuff, which is typically a cooler tone, something like that, because contemporary spaces. So it's all about, like here, this is kind of uh, uh like a loungy area where people can hang out and mingle, and then you just keep extending that feeling
Mhm.
through the room, right? You're if depending on what you're designing, whatever that space is, right? You just try to keep extending the little comfortable spaces as you're going. So each space in the room is this is a good way to put it's collected.
Mhm.
You've collected the space, you've curated the space, you've curated this, you've collected the pieces that fit in this. Then you move on with that collection and you move on with the colors. And again, if I'm doing a black wall, not everything has to be black. Bring
Right.
color in.
Mhm.
People are afraid to use color. People, and I'm a big moody color. Like this wall's dark, but it's got a lot of pop of color.
Right.
We started painting this black, and people go, "Oh, that's terrible. It's all black." I'm like, "Wait,
Right. Right.
don't judge the process." I'm a big fan of saying to people, "Just wait. You're gonna love it when it's done. It's scary right now. The process
Mm.
always scares
That's a
people.
really good point that people need to understand is
You need to
that
understand it.
the process really until
It
even
can be ugly as the process goes,
Mhm.
and you're going, "Oh, I don't even know about this."
But then
but
you soften the
but
corners.
then you soften it
Mhm.
and you pull it together, and then you pull your whole vision together. And again, I use the word collected again. Everything's curated, everything is intentional. Like everything in this space was handpicked,
Mhm.
or whatever space
Sure.
that is. You've handpicked each piece. And that's it's intentional.
You really helped me when I started making the haunted houses.
Hmm.
Um, and first, all I did was make the haunted houses,
Right.
and they were just plain or painted,
And they were great.
and they're great. But then you started to add some moss,
Right.
some little curly Q willow, which really took my mind and go, oh wow, look what you can create. You're really creating a yard
Yeah.
and a tree, and and so now the difference of that plain house, which still look really cool,
That's the hard stuff.
right? That's the hard
That's the
stuff.
hard element that you've started, right?
And you've planted the seed now. I can
Right.
soften the edges, and again, no rules.
No
I
rules.
love that I can just, you know what, I'm taking this flower, I'm taking this
Right.
bunch of something from around the property, literally picking up walnuts off the ground, seed pods and magnolia pods off the ground,
Yes.
and putting them next to these houses. It's just unbelievable. So you gave me that idea, you showed me some things, and then what do you think of it now?
You've taken, when you first started doing your houses, they were fabulous. And then I think I kept saying to you, let's take it up a
Hmm.
notch. Let's take it up a notch and next level it,
Right.
right? Which is what you
I
started
which
doing.
caused time. So I wasn't
Right.
ready, wasn't
Yeah.
prepared when I started. Like
Right.
I just want to get these
I
done and
just
get
want to
these,
get these
yeah,
done.
right.
And I'm like, you're going to take these things to the next
Hmm.
level when you add. I'm a big fan of what Mother Nature provides.
Hmm.
Mother Nature provides, it's free, first of all. Go out and cut some tree limbs or, florals and things that, Mother Nature has provided the most beautiful things. It's like
Natural colors.
right,
Hmm.
and it's natural,
Pine
and it's
cones.
and it's just whatever it wants to be, and it's
Hmm.
just like let it go. And that's what you did with your houses. You started taking things that Mother Nature gave
Hmm.
to you and you brought outside in,
I love natural.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I love nature.
Reclaimed. I love it. And those colors are so beautiful,
Right.
and it reminds me of the property, of the homestead,
Yes.
because it has all those natural browns and greens, and it's so it really is almost a calming feeling to even do the work and look at those colors and be part of that. Yeah. So I thank you for that inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, what your houses have become, because then you started to add, in my opinion, you started to add your natural elements,
Hmm.
and then you started adding other hard elements like the metal and things like that to complement what you just next leveled. So it keeps jumping levels,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So that's what you're doing with your pieces, I think.
Yeah, they really have evolved,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been trying to draw inspiration from many different things now, whether that's Pinterest. Everybody uses that. Just searching images
Right.
online, and I let everything influence me. in that sense.
Right.
I can really say, okay, I need inspiration. I got to go walk into the workshop, and I can just turn around and look for a moment at a blade of grass, at a tree, and go, I got an idea. And just take that and start.
Right.
Because the key is start, put in the time
Right.
for that creativity. And again, who knows where that's going to take you?
Mhm.
Because oftentimes I get inspiration to start and it becomes something completely different.
Right.
But having that inspiration to start with has been really interesting because right now it's just flowing. It's not hard for me to find that motivation or influence to do
Right.
something. I can take it from an angle, from looking at another house down the street, at a brick home. It could just be these chairs. I'm like, oh, I look at this and I go, you know what? It would be cool if
Right.
I could,
Exactly.
and I can just take an inspiration from anything, and it may or may not come out to that, but it gets me in there and gets me started, and it always becomes something unique and different.
Well, I mean, think about it. Where you started 5 months ago.
That one is the Chuck
That
Berry session, the London Chuck Berry session
was his
coming
fault.
after
He
me.
taped that up wrong.
That was my fault.
Just saying, because I warned him that that was going to come flying down during the interview. So that's
we changed the albums just for this shoot, so we wanted some color back there. We love it, so yeah.
So you're welcome.
um,
But you think about it. You started doing this September,
mhm.
right? It's January, not even the end of January. We're going to get there. And think of how far what you've started to do has evolved
Evolved so much.
in, 5 months, 4 months,
Mhm.
whatever that is, pretty
Mhm.
fast. So think about it. A year from now, what are they going to look like? And
Mhm.
maybe it's not going to be houses. Maybe it's going to be, you know,
Trees.
trees, guitars. Maybe he's going to make canoes. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? It's just been nice taking the small amount of woodworking skill that I have and using it for the best of its ability.
Right.
Because I'm
Right.
definitely no woodcrafter, and don't follow me for safety tips either. if
Oh no, please don't follow me for safety tips.
if you
You
saw
lose a
me in
couple
there,
fingers, right?
yeah, you would be covering your eyes the way I use those power tools. But
Mm-hmm.
so you've done a few houses for people, you've done a couple flip houses for ourselves, you've lived in a few houses and decorated, but you still have this desire to continue to do it at the homestead
Right.
for the business, and you just love doing it. So where are you pulling your inspiration from at this point?
Well, it's kind of like what you just said. Like, I hate to watch the shows. I'm sorry. That's not my thing. I know people love them. It's not my thing. I think they've been overdone, and I think the market is saturated or oversaturated with that stuff. Everybody's
And
doing it.
maybe becoming a little too fake, a
Well,
little too
and that's
staged.
part of it.
Hmm.
It's not organic.
Hmm.
It's not a natural thing that just evolves from people. A lot of those shows are
You
contrived. They're
certainly couldn't
canned.
do your design
Blech.
in
I,
7 days
no,
the
and
way
I
you
I
do it.
think it's, reality TV, not my thing. But I do appreciate what true creative people do.
Hmm.
That inspires me. Like if I'm scrolling through, Instagram, because
Hmm.
I'm not a technology person. Instagram's about as high as I go. And I'll see things and I watch people and I watch them putting together this stuff and not being afraid to do it. That inspires me.
Hmm.
I watch just regular people. I'm a regular person. Like I said, I have no qualifications. I have no certificates. It's just something I love that's evolved over the years. So if I see things on some social media sites and I see things, I'll look at a design or bit of a design that I like and I go, oh, I can run with that. That is way cool. Like
Hmm.
I really love the organic stuff, the natural stuff, the earthy stuff. That kind of drives me, the moody stuff. That's inspiring to me. So when I see pieces like that, or I see something like that, that inspires me. And then I take it and then I build upon it. Like
Right.
I can make this better. I can do this better for me. This stuff is very subjective, folks. It's not, my way's better than your stinks. It's nothing like that. Everybody has their own
You have to
tastes.
live in it, right?
You have to
So
live in it. You should love what
you
you're
should love
living
what,
in.
yeah, as
I
long as you
always
love
tell
it.
people that
Hmm.
it's your home.
Hmm.
If you love it, then it's going to love you back.
Right.
Just do what makes you happy.
And there's enough people in the world that there's going to be other people who like what you do, and
Right.
not everybody is.
Well, and that was part, frankly, and I think we've had this discussion before. I really am a pretty private person.
Hmm.
I don't like putting myself out there. Like, this is a little uncomfortable hearing about my, you know, my thoughts and um, it's putting your ideas out there and your designs and your decor. And in the beginning, I would be like, "Oh my gosh, people are going to hate this. They're going to think I'm
You did.
such a hack.
Hmm.
Who am I to, express this to people?" And hopefully they like it. I hope I don't get any haters because that'll just
Ruin your motivation, right?
ruin me. So a lot of times I don't pay attention to that. But
Hmm.
so far it's been pretty people have been pretty receptive. Like I said, we have the homestead. You can exhibit your creativity there. We have the
Hmm.
pleasure of having that beautiful backdrop where you can share your creativity. A lot of people don't have that. But
I
and
think.
I always say to people, I like it. If
Hmm.
you don't like it, that's totally fine. But this is something that I like and I hope you like it.
Right. You never started any of this to share it and put it on
No,
display for other people.
no.
So, um, it was interesting actually to see you do this and be like, people are going to think this is so dumb. No one's going to like this, and be somewhat of a doubter because you're not, you're a very confident person. So
Well, I am
to see
yeah,
you doubt
yeah.
yourself is strange for me, but I also see your work and I go, whatever,
It wasn't so much that I doubted myself. I like
You
doing
like,
this. I love
right.
doing this. Um, Taste is subjective,
Hmm.
right? It's a very personal thing to people.
Hmm.
And it's personal to me too, but I like to, now I'm getting comfortable with sharing it with people
Hmm.
and hoping they like it. And if they don't, my response is, it's okay. You don't have to like this. I like it. I hope you do. And if you don't, maybe you'll like the next thing.
I love to touch on that a little bit more because when you really have to do it for yourself,
Yeah.
because you got to live with it, as you said,
Mhm.
you have to do it. But with the business, it's a little different because you're doing it for others, but you're still doing you. You're doing your
Right.
style, and you hope that other people do it. And you've been lucky enough that everyone loves it. And I'm sure it's amazing to hear that feedback all the time when people come in and they do that head turn. Oh wow, well, this is
It's
amazing.
nice. It's a nice validation. Yeah.
And so it encouraged you. For me, when someone bought one of my houses, it blew my mind.
Right. People actually like this.
They paid money for this. I couldn't believe it. And then they kept buying them
Right,
and,
right,
and
right.
paying more for them, or buying two at a time. And it completely changed, blew my mind, but it encouraged me to continue.
It does. It puts wind
Hmm.
in your sails,
Puts a
right?
little wind in your
A little
sails.
wind in your sails. You go,
I think
oh,
it did,
okay.
and I think it did for you as well.
It did for me as well. You know, but the other thing to remember is you can't please
All
everybody.
right.
I'm
Hmm.
not going to be everything for everybody,
Hmm.
and that's okay.
Hmm.
It's okay, right?
Somebody said, well, someone will say, I would have done it different, and that's
That's
okay.
great,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We're also limited on time and have to get the things
Yeah,
done,
right,
and
right,
can't sit on them for forever either. But
right,
yeah, so getting that wind in your seals, as you put it, getting a little feedback that you're in, somebody else likes it, really helps you keep going. And I've seen that now with the homestead. You're taking chances,
right,
right? You have enough confidence to go, okay, I'm going to go beyond the basic. Your Everything you do is not basic, but you're going beyond where your level is. You're now challenging yourself to
right,
take it up a notch, which takes more time, more energy, more people up and down the ladder. Uh, but
right.
but tell me about how you're scaling yourself.
Well, life is evolutionary, right? What you've been doing with your houses has evolved, even in the short amount of
Hmm.
time that you've been doing it. I mean, I've been doing decor and design, if that's what you want to call it, um, for a lot of years, but it's always kind of in the background because I had to focus on making money doing other things, having another real job. Um, but it's evolved, I and I think it's an age thing too. I think it's learning not to take everything personally, right?
Hmm.
And just saying, you know what, just go for it. Just, whatever that is. I mean, I I don't want to tell you, like every year we open up the homestead, we try to reformat things and redesign things because things get stale,
Yeah.
right? And that's a step up. Every
Hmm.
time it's a step up. Oh, let's try this. Let's try this. We've done some things in the studio now that I think have kicked it up a notch.
Yeah.
Added another cool element to it.
Hmm.
And I hope when people walk in, they go, "Oh, this is pretty dang cool. This is, it used to be this, it used to be that." And I'm like, "Yeah, it used to be that, but we wanted to try something different."
Hmm.
And again, if you like it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. You're welcome anyway. So it's not, and I don't like to reveal the things that are always going in my brain, like the next things I want to do, because there are next things. I don't like to share
You don't
them.
want to judge the process,
I don't, well,
or
it's
someone
not
else to
judging the
judge the process.
process. I think some of the things that I have in my brain are bigger scale,
Hmm.
not just, accessorizing a space and bringing in new goods, which is always fun. But, it's about manifesting something even bigger,
Mm.
right? You manifested the
Sounds
homestead.
heavy for me.
It well, you manifested the homestead.
Uh
You
huh.
believed that that was going to happen, and you believed it, and you believed it, and you were acting. Your actions were going towards that,
Hmm.
and you didn't even have the homestead. You
Right.
just knew it was going to happen,
Right.
and you believed it.
Hmm.
So it's the same kind of thing. As you evolve, you believe, I can do this, right? I can do. It ain't going to be perfect, and that's okay. As long as you have that in your brain, it's not going to be perfect. Just stick your neck out there and give it a shot. But there's other stuff brewing in here that a little scary for
I can't
me.
wait to hear it.
I know. Well, I can't either.
Sure. Yeah, that's very true. Um, so to wrap up a little bit here, what do you think? Where are we going? Tell us about the upcoming events. Tell us about what's going on in your brain, and where are we going with this?
Well, I don't know what we want to share or what we don't want to share because it's not all cooked. But you have the art show coming up February
Hmm.
17th, which is really going to be exciting. He's got a whole new line of his custom homes,
Hmm.
his tiny homes, some not so
Tiny
tiny,
homes. Yeah.
right? Some really cool things coming that we just did a photo shoot with,
Hmm.
and bringing in some other local artists. That's going to be exciting. That's February 17th.
How the other artists are? We know them all
Great
personally. They're
people,
fantastic.
right?
I can't wait to see. They're actually creating some original pieces just for this show. So it's really going to be great. And what you're creating in the space, as the creative designer of the space, is just for this art show. And we're going to use some of it to carry on into
Right.
the year as well.
I'm more the backdrop. You
Hmm.
guys are the main event. So I'm choir, your lead singers. That's how that looks. And which is great. And I don't mind, being, but you got to have the right backdrop for the what
Hmm.
your vision is for your art show. So that's coming up. And then we officially open at the beginning of March. I think it's the first weekend in March. And
Yeah.
then one weekend a month through August. And then when we hit fall and Christmas, we're open every weekend. But again, we spend a lot of time looking for cool pieces,
Hmm.
looking for one of a kind pieces. We kind of have a reputation for finding that one cool piece. I like your place because you don't have the same things that everybody else has,
Right.
right?
Right.
Which
That's
is
the
what
key.
we like.
Hmm.
We want to do, like I said, same thing with design.
Hmm.
You don't want it to look like everybody else's, and maybe you do.
Hmm.
I don't. That's not my calling.
Yeah.
Um,
We're very fortunate to have a nice
yeah,
surrounding of different antique shops that have different unique pieces. And you can definitely come to our store and find those pieces. You can go to the other store and hunt through those stores and find individual pieces also. Our place is a little different. It's already hand curated, the coolest, neatest things.
right.
And also, the property, the homestead
The
itself,
property is amazing. It's an old homestead. If you're not
1759.
familiar
Hmm.
with it, right? From 1759. It's not a huge property, but there are some very old historic buildings on the site. Spring house, summer kitchen, the cottage and the studio, an old carriage house, but then there's an old stone farmhouse that's private, but the whole, again, that's a collected site too. The whole backdrop of what this is like a step back in time.
Hmm.
But you get to enjoy the shops
Hmm.
and the people. I mean, that's another important thing for us, or
Yeah.
the people that we meet. That's key.
So we're hoping to do more events this year.
Right.
Um, really kind of parties and workshops and maybe dinners, pizza parties. We got some things are still cooking. We got some
Right.
ideas for some really cool, unique events as well. So I think you're really gonna like it.
We're working on, well, we've been working on this for a while, because it takes a lot of time. We're trying to put together a more professional website
Mm,
where hopefully we'll be able to, have a good communication through this website, be able to publicize our events and activities and schedules, and, offer people products online. So that's cooking. Hopefully, we're hoping to get that together maybe mid-year. That takes time in order to do it right. We're working with a woman who actually helped us with our marketing
right.
and logo in the beginning. So that's the next level, and we want to do that right and take our
Yeah.
time.
Megan's great. Looking forward to working
Yeah,
with her, and hopefully some more of these videos,
right.
some more pictures, and some more events. It's going to be great. If you had to give people, back on the subject of creativity, you ever give people, what's your biggest one, maybe two pieces of advice that you could give them?
I would say, remember, there are no rules to design. I listen to all these buzzwords. Oh, this year it's transitional modern. Oh, this year it's niche. Oh, this year it's farmhouse. Oh, this year. And I'm like, stop it. Just go. Just go and go with what's in your gut,
Hmm.
and you can call it whatever you want. People like to label things. That's great. I'm not a big fan of that. But just go with what's pleasing to you,
Right.
right? It's something that you have to live with.
Yeah.
No rules, and again, if you see cool pieces out there and you want to reinvent it, go for it. Take a shot. If you're not spending a lot of money, you're spending $5 on something, and you repainted it, or you
Right.
you reclad it, or whatever you did, just
I
go for it.
think this room is a testament to that. This is a no rules kind of
No
room. This
rules,
doesn't have a
right?
title to it. You really encapsulate that. So just get started. Do
Just get
what's do
started.
what's good in your
Right.
eye, what you feel. Go down a direction, give things a try, and you'll get there.
Yes, right. Agreed.
Well,
That's what you did.
thank you, Beth. Thank you for joining us on our first episode. I'm hopefully going to bring in some more people on the subject, other creators, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. But check out newspiritoldsoul.com. Check us out on social media, New Spirit Old Soul, on Facebook and Instagram. That's where you're going to get most of the information right now until the website is ready.
Right.
And February 17th, come out to the art show. It's from 3 to 9 p.m. It's limited parking. Try to carpool if you can, and we look forward to seeing you there. Our reopen
I think it's March
March 1st, 2nd, and
1st.
3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We really appreciate the people who come
Oh
in
my gosh.
and visit with us. We have the best people come into the shops
We've
that
had
we've made so
friends.
many friends
Sure.
with. We can't thank everybody enough, but we do look forward to meeting new people, and hopefully it just keeps getting bigger and better this year, and we would love to get a chance to meet everybody.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll see you again.
Thanks.